Life will never be a crystal stair. More like a battlefield filled with landmines and snares. You can either navigate the field or sit sidelined scared, screaming at the rest of the world that life just ain't fair, and you're right. Ain't nothing fair about this thing called life. Some are fork-fed fortune while others futilely fight for an inch, a pinch, a sliver, a slice, a dash of daybreak in the darkness of night. But what shall your game plan be? Will you sit on the sideline resigned to defeat, lamenting over all the odds you feel you can't beat? Put your hand over your heart. And if you still feel a beat, then you are blessed. So tell stress to take several seats. Step on all your haters' necks, lace up the boots on your feet, and then stride into your year, your month, your week, your day, your hour, your minutes, your moments, every part of life as if you own it. If you have a set of goals, then you better get on it, because in this fight called life, we're our fiercest opponent, and we pack jabs of indecision and uppercuts of self-doubt. If you don't defend yourself from yourself, you might knock yourself out. But you just can't play defense, constant retreat. You have to go on the attack, float like a butterfly sweet, and then swing for the fences and reach for the stars. Launch toward Mercury and grab a hold of Mars and take a ride on a comet, but there are no handlebars and no training wheels, so of course you'll fall off and get bloodied, muddied and sullied and scarred, but you must pick yourself up and brush yourself off. And that's how you deal with those falls defines who you are, and you are amazing. No crystal stair needed. Seated in your soul is a celestial symphony, which means you're right where you're meant to be. You've got to open up your eyes and see it. Tune your ears to your own imperfect pitch. Ride your system's glitch. Scratch your own itch like a DJ, like a DJ, like a DJ. When you live life this way, it's like you play soul music and mix it with hip hop and salsa and classical. It becomes a magical mashup for you to groove with. Now, who is this? Staring back at you every single morning in the mirror. I say it is none other than a reflection of God or a goddess. So look right back at them every single day and make them a promise that you will always and forever live life amazing. Now, I wrote that poem about 3 years ago while conducting poetry workshops at a local university. But in actuality, that poem started over a decade ago when I left the malaise of corporate America for greener pastures, public education. So, now, which is crazy because I told myself that I would never, ever, ever become a teacher. But after toiling in corporate America for a while and feeling unfulfilled and feeling like I was existing and not living, I wanted to do something different. I felt like where I needed to be was a 7th grade reading class. So I went, and I was excited, and I was going to shake up the world and save the world. And so I went in there with my new energy and everything that I thought I needed, which was the fact that I was smart, and I was smart. But I quickly realized that my students needed more than that. See, I came with my new energy, but the same old methods, the same curriculum, the same strategies, and I got the same result, which weren't pretty. The curriculum that I was given to give the students was not connecting with them and didn't consider their experiences, their abilities, their interests at all. And so there was this huge, vast disconnect that existed. And so after failure after failure after failure, I tried to find a way to make a connection, and I decided to lean into the thing that helped me when I was younger, which is creativity, imagination, and writing. You see, when I was around 8 years old, I was a quiet and often sad kid, and a counselor, I think it was a counselor, it could have been a lunch lady, I'm not sure, but we'll say it's a counselor. She gave me a notepad and said, when you're feeling a certain way, just go ahead and write about it, write it out. And so I did. My first couple of writings were a bunch of curse words to my dad that wasn't around. And I was 8, so my cursing game wasn't really good. But I kept writing, and eventually I started feeling better. And I realized that whenever I was feeling something, I was experiencing things, that I could just write it out. So when my crush circled no on the note that I gave her, I wrote it out. When I was bullied and jumped almost every day in 7th grade, I wrote it out. when a high school English teacher who didn't appreciate my interpretation of Lord of the Flies told me that I would paint carpets for a living. When I got out of prison, I wrote it out. But believe me, by then my profanity prowess had increased by quite a bit. So throughout my life, I realized that my connection and ability and access to my creativity helped me through all kinds of adversity. And that's what I wanted to bring to my students, and so I did. I started off very easily by bringing them hip hop. I brought them Outkast and Tupac, A Tribe Called Quest, and we began to listen to these songs and dissect the lyrics. Said, what are these MCs actually talking about, and what are they really trying to say? Teaching them subtext. And that allowed us to transition into poetry. So we started going over Langston Hughes and Nikki Giovanni and the Last Poets. After reading the poetry, then they started writing the poetry. Now, these same students who a few weeks earlier were in my classroom and throwing books were now writing poems, original poetry about their experiences, about their lives, heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching poems. And they were reading and they were learning and they were growing. It was beautiful. After that, no matter what class I taught, creative expression was at the center of it. A couple of years later, I went to high school and I started a poetry club at the school. And I convinced my principal to put a creative writing class in the curriculum. I also revived a dormant drama program that attracted all sorts of students, from the football star to the quietest scientist. Why? Because when you give people permission and access to creatively and authentically express themselves, it's a game changer. It's a game changer. But we all don't have that. Unfortunately, around the country, there are plenty of schools where a student will spend an entire day and not experience the arts at all. And that number increases if that school is disproportionately a black population, a brown population, a population where the students are of low income. Which is crazy, because countless studies from highly reputable and respectable sources have shown that the access and exposure to arts and arts education positively and directly impacts literacy, mental health, social and emotional well-being, empathy, and overall quality of life. Right now, we're having a lot of really important discussions around the ideas of diversity and inclusion and justice and equity. I think it's important that when we have those discussions that we don't exclude the arts, because having exposure to the arts, the access to take a poetry class or take a music class or to watch a play or a musical, fits right into the idea of having a more equitable and just society. Now, when I talk about the power of arts with people, I often get, well, there are a lot more important things to talk about right now. A poem or a song can't stop climate change. A play won't end world hunger. We're so divided as a country right now. Well, what can a poem do? Well, my idea is that if you want to create a more just society, you want to help develop more well-rounded and fully developed critical thinkers, more empathetic human beings, then put a pen in the child's hand. Give them a canvas and a paintbrush. Show them how to play the trumpet. Teach them the tango. But what happens when that isn't in your school curriculum? When your parents can't afford private lessons? That's when we, as a community, step in. And as a community, I don't just mean us as individuals. I mean our local, state, regional governments. I mean philanthropists. I mean corporations and businesses. All need to invest in programs and organizations and artists and educators who are providing everyone with the access and the permission to be creative and authentically express themselves. Now, to the person who might say, like, what can a poem do? I say a poem cannot save a life, cannot Luke Cage or Superman your skin fend off a dark alley attack, cannot make you less woman, less poor, or less black and thus treated equally. A poem cannot stop a bullet, stop a bomb, stop terror at your doorstep. Your step, even with poem in hand, could be your last. A blast would turn the paper poem is written on into dust. Similes up in smoke. Metaphors just molecules forgotten. A poem cannot turn back time's hands, erase mistakes made, cut, copy, paste memories, or delete history's horrors. But a poem can love, like hold you and scold you at the same time. A poem can rip away the untruths that have cocooned us. A poem can make you butterfly, not fly, you already fly, but a poem can make you float. No need to watch a step. Quiet is kept. A poem can introduce you to yourself. Help discover those hidden and forbidden parts. A poem be like a mirror sometimes. Help you see the speck in your eye and the plank. On second thought, a poem can save a life. Like the wise words that Granddaddy whispered, like the truth just beneath the scriptures. A poem cannot stop a bullet, no, but it can swallow the hate and spit back a sonnet. That sonic booms a room till quotes float like balloons and goblins and goons start to nod their heads to what was written or said. It's ironic. They say that the pen is mightier than the sword. But there were few writers on my block, mostly fighters on my block, dropouts that pulled all-nighters on my block. What if there were more writers on my block? Because they would blue and red light us on my block, then indict us on my block. What if there were more writers on my block? On your block. In every barrio or borough, conclave and commonwealth, courtroom or Capitol Hill. What if they all spilled ink on pages, allowed the inner workings of their hearts to scribble a poem or two? Maybe then we could all see exactly what this world could be when we saw what a poem could do. Thank you.